All right, folks. Good afternoon or good evening. It's always funny saying greetings when you're online because you have really no idea where people are. People are all over the planet. And so, good evening, good afternoon, and possibly even good morning to some folks. Um, Welcome to another Esoterica live stream, where we can talk about the episode from the past couple of weeks. This fantastic text, the Emanations, on the left hand side, which really proved to be a really popular episode. I was really blown away by how people really liked that episode a lot, and it was kind of a harebrained idea just to do it on a limb. So I'm really glad that folks like that episode. We can talk about it more in detail if folks want. And then this other episode this week, which was on a bit more of a philosophical side of things. I don't typically do a lot of very philosophical episodes, but it was a lot of fun doing one that was much more trying to take a look at some of these difficult ideas in something like Gnosticism or something like mystical experiences, and trying to cash those out in terms of philosophical rigor. Of course, that's a pretty difficult thing to do because obviously mysticism is very resistant to that kind of interrogation. And so doing that was a bit challenging, but I hope that it came out okay. I'll also say that I'm still nursing a cold. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but I'm like still stuffed up and still feeling a bit under the weather. I think I had a fever earlier. So if I seem a little out of it or not quite as sharp as I normally am, not that I'm that, not that I'm always that sharp, but if I seem a little out of it, that might be why. But hopefully this cold will be on its way out, but no signs of it of it letting up yet. So if I'm coughing and stuff like that, please forgive me during the live stream. But yeah, I'd love to hear your questions. I'd love to hear thoughts about the last two recent videos. I think that the one on mysticism that just came out today, and again, of course, the week that I would do it's just a cold. It's not COVID or anything. Thank God. Yeah, it's just a regular old cold. But yeah, it's funny. I thought this week, I was going to take it easy on myself because I was feeling not so great, that I would do a relatively short episode. And of course, I decided to choose a topic that's going to make itself into a 50-minute episode. So I don't know, a glutton for punishment or something. I don't know what's wrong with me. But yeah, it's just that's the way that it goes. Kazumi 414, thank you so much. Thank you for your donation, for supporting the channel. If you want to drop a question or anything, I'll make sure to get to it, and you can obviously watch the live stream later. But thank you so much for dropping a little change in the thing. So yeah, folks, thanks so much for the well wishes for my health. I really appreciate that. I've never had great health. I've always been someone, there's a funny story there if folks want to hear it, actually, that every time I get a cold, I almost always get bronchitis. And there's a funny story that's esoteric related about that. So I can tell that story if folks really want to hear it, although it's kind of embarrassing, but whatever. Why not embarrass yourself on the internet? That's what everyone's doing these days, right? So yeah, thanks also for the folks just talking nicely about the channel. I'm really glad that folks find the channel rewarding and find the content helpful, whether it's just interesting or just you just find it interesting, or it's personally helpful for you in your practice. So let me jump up to some of the questions and see what folks are curious about. I'm all about getting some questions and seeing what's going on with folks. Would I ever do an episode on the Golden Dawn? Yeah, of course. Yeah, eventually. As you can probably see, the channel is it skews toward antiquity, and it's skewing toward the Middle Ages, and there's a reason for that. There's a method behind the madness. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I don't want necessarily to do the sort of Peter Adamson history of philosophy with no gaps, because I think Schwepp is doing that. Schwepp is doing an absolutely amazing job of doing sort of the history of esotericism with no gaps. I want to be able to jump around when I'm doing episodes, but I want the long arc to kind of be building up chronologically, because I think that if you don't have a really firm grounding in the history of stuff, it gets really hard to make sense of the later stuff. And so I think a part of what's important about doing episodes on the Golden Dawn or Blavatsky or Aleister Crowley, in fact, I actually have Kaczynski's Perdurabo biography of Crowley that I just got in. I want to read it. I've read chunks of it, but I want to read it again. Because I just want to get a firm historical foundation before I jump into the more modern stuff. And another reason for that is that people have really strong opinions about the more modern stuff, right? And so I want to make sure that I'm on very firm ground when I jump into the more modern stuff, so that I'm not, I'm not opening myself up to a lot of criticism that's not really helpful. But yes, eventually I will definitely get to the Golden Dawn. That is definitely going to happen. So absolutely. Let me jump up. The God helmets. There's, this folks know about this. There have been a lot of experiments where, especially in centrifuges, where people have, and I forget exactly which way you have to spin the centrifuge, but it's basically putting pressure here on the temporal lobe, sometimes called the God spot, and that can cause religious experiences in some people. It doesn't cause them in all people. And that's absolutely a fascinating part of our brain chemistry. Also, temporal lobe epilepsy. People who suffer from temporal lobe epilepsy, I think Dostoevsky suffered from it. They also experience mystical visions during these epileptic episodes. And so it's an interesting part about this business of things like near-death experiences, religious experiences in general, sort of, and these kinds of experiences that one can have there. But yeah, I think it's all fascinating work. Anytime you can do interesting work that dovetails with, for me at least, with science and religion and mysticism, I just find that stuff endlessly fascinating. Let's see. How do you personally reconcile the study of these topics and living out a life full of mysticism? For me, it's, this is from Devin Elon Magdi. For me, it's an academic interest, right? In the same way that someone like Jackson Crawford is very interested in the Norse mythology, although he's not a practitioner of Asatru. For me, it's a academic thing that I'm just interested in, and I love to talk about it, and I love to research it, and I find that it's an incredibly important part of the human experience that doesn't get enough attention. And so, in my opinion, Western esotericism and esotericism in general doesn't get the respect that it deserves as an academic discipline. It doesn't get the respect that it deserves as a spiritual discipline either. I feel like people who practice esoteric or occult practices don't get respected in the same way that a Jesuit or a rabbi would get respected. And I find that to be really, really unfortunate, unfair. In fact, I have colleagues that are practitioners of esoteric traditions, and they're frankly afraid to come out as practitioners of these traditions because they're afraid to be judged. And I think it's completely unfair that they would be judged. Whereas if I were a rabbi and I were working in Kabbalah, no one would judge me. No one's going to bat an eye at that. And I find that double standard in academia to be really unacceptable. And so I think that part of my passion for esotericism is because I think it gets underappreciated and misrepresented. And so it's sort of like my passion for the underdog. So I love doing the work on the channel in that regard. So yeah, that's part of what motivates me, or part of it. And also this stuff is just, who doesn't want to sit around reading about demons and stuff all the time? It's just fascinating. It's fascinating. So Lord Zuclock 666 is a channel my main source of income. It's not my main source of income. I think it may eventually become my primary source of income. I would like to transition to doing basically what I would consider online education, doing online education. And I think that doing this full time would be something that I'd want to do full time. But that's all going to depend on lots of factors outside of my control, like support for the channel and things like that, financial support of the channel, basically. And but again, I have no desire to rush that. And I'm going to continue making the best content I can with the skills that I have and the knowledge I have, regardless of whether I'm getting paid a lot of money or a little money to do it, because the material deserves the attention, and yeah, I'm all about making that happen. The hamster asks, yeah, thanks for the donation. Any connection between the OTO and the Thule Society? Thule Society was one of the sort of right wing Nazi oriented groups. I think that there was some connection, but I don't think it was very strong. I mean, the Nazis themselves did not like esotericism, or they only liked their own esotericism, the SS specifically. I think Hitler had very little interest in it. I think it was primarily an SS Heinrich Himmler thing. But I think in general that they were not interested. I think they shut down some of the Freemasons and other stuff as well. The Nazis were pretty brutal about that, among other things. But I don't know of any specific connection between the OTO and the Thule Society itself. But yeah, it's Nicholas Goodrich Clark has some great books on the history of some Nazi mysticism. I want to get into that stuff eventually. I think it's really fascinating, but I can't say I know a ton about it. Let me scroll back up and get some more questions that were here at the beginning, and I'll maybe be a bit less long-winded and try to answer some of the questions as we go. So let me scroll back up and see what's going on up here before I get down. Do one on Baphomet. Yeah, the Baphomet stuff is fascinating, especially the Templars and sort of what medieval people thought Baphomet was. Definitely going to do one of those episodes at some point. Yeah, the seminar on the Corpus Hermeticum, that's definitely going to happen, Amanda. It's going to happen. I just got to get time to put it together. Maybe this summer, hopefully this summer, actually. It will definitely be on the table. In fact, not only is it on the table, it's literally on the table. Like, it's like my reading is literally right here. And you're reading good books, folks. And I don't know if I can show this on the screen, but you're reading good books when the books actually straight up have like hieroglyphs in the text. So yeah, it will happen, and I'm still doing research. So Amanda, you're one, thank you for supporting the channel. Two, I definitely want to get to it. It's got to get time to hash it all out. Let's see. So Sacred Meow, it's a great name. As a practitioner, it will be an academic field to pursue to dive deep into this stuff. There's a ton of work to be done on all aspects of esotericism. And so I say as a practitioner, you're just as, you basically just have to figure out, sort of look at the field, open up a copy of the Journal Aries, or look up the journal correspondences, or see what sort of stuff folks are pitching, and just find what interests you and just work in that niche. There's still a ton of work to be done in the field of Western esotericism, and by no means is it niched out yet. So it's not like in philosophy where you're going to be the 57th guy working on Kant. You can carve out space where you're basically the only person working on the Nabatean agriculture or something. I don't know, which is, again, fascinating text. So you can be the person that you're the Nabatean agriculture person. So that is a thing you can do. There's plenty of work to be done there. Modern Hermeticists, of course. Dan Trell, how do I ascend to become one with the Pleiadians? I guess DMT, Dan. That'd be my guess. If I had to roll the dice, I would. If I were a betting man, I would probably say DMT. But your mileage may vary. Why the Pleiades? Why people like the Pleiades? I do like the fact that Subaru is the Japanese word for the Pleiades, and like literally their emblem for the car is the Pleiades. I really appreciate that. A connection between the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and the angelic story outlined in the Book of Enoch. I don't think so. The Book of Enoch's much older than the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. The Emerald Tablets, the Hermes Trismegistus, probably written down late classical period, probably in Greek, although the version we have is from the Arabic period. So yeah, but I would say that the Book of Enoch is 600 years older, at least 600 years older. At least 600 years older. I'll be doing an episode in 2 weeks on the book, on the Emerald Tablets. So in the not next week, but the week after, the episode that week will be on the Tabula Samardina, the Emerald tablets. So look for that one. Look for that one. The Vedic traditions. I probably won't be doing an episode on the Vedic traditions, Chad, because it's not connected so much with esotericism. There's nothing inherently esoteric about the Vedas. I mean, they're the unique text for the Hindu tradition, but I don't think I'll be covering anything specifically on the Vedas. Philip over at Let's Talk Religion has a great episode on the Vedas if you're curious about that. Thoughts on the Israel situation? It's a terrible situation. I mean, there's nothing. Again, I'm not a political theorist, and I'm not a, I don't comment on geopolitics or anything. But obviously, when you have a bunch of people lobbing rockets at each other, things have gotten bad. And I think that the destiny of the Israelis and the Palestinians are now bound up with one another. And far be it from me, sitting back in the comfort of my own home, neither having my land stolen from me by settlers, nor being in Ashkelon with rockets falling all around me. I have, I think a lot of American Jews have this weird sense of entitlement that they can get in those people's business. And my general attitude is that if I don't have skin in the game, I should keep my damn mouth shut. And so I don't have skin in the game at some level. It's not, I'm not an Israeli. I'm not Palestinian. And I think when people when people outside of a conflict feel the need to interject their nose into that conflict when they don't have skin in the game, I just find that to be, ethically problematic, irresponsible, maybe. So, I'm not going to really venture an opinion because I think it's maybe irresponsible to venture one. But yeah, I just wish for peace in that region. I've done peace work in Palestine, Israel. As an American Jew, I've gone over there once to do some peace work with the Jewish Center for Nonviolence, which is an organization I really like. I've tried to do my tiny part to make the situation better, but it's beyond me. Let's see. Let me scroll down here. Thoughts on Daniel Matt? I really like Daniel Matt. Daniel Matt's a great scholar. He is fun to study with. I've studied with Daniel Matt a couple times, studying Zohar in the original language, which is amazing to watch someone just read. He's like, he has Zohar in front of him, but it's just the Aramaic. He just has the Aramaic in front of him, and he just reads it like right off the page, and he just studies it right there in Aramaic. That really blows my mind. It's really impressive to watch him. And he's such a kind, gentle person. I think a lot of scholars who have that kind of command can be arrogant and things like that. And I've seen scholars like that. And I've seen enough of that to try my best not to be like that myself. But to see Dr. Matt really, excuse me, shepherd people into a text as difficult as the Zohar and give them the confidence to study that text in a way that is accessible to people is not only is he a fantastic translator, but also he's a fantastic teacher in that he makes people feel comfortable to approach a text that is notoriously difficult. And he doesn't use his deep understanding, his deep wisdom to gatekeep and scare people away and tell people that they can't study it. He works hard to make it so that people feel comfortable studying it. And that, I think, folks, is a sign of a great soul and a great educator. So I really admire Daniel Matt in those regards. He has talks online, and I think some of his Zohar talks are on YouTube as well. And so I really appreciate that stuff. I really appreciate him a whole bunch. Thoughts on the Nephilim and other progenitor species of humanity? I don't think the Nephilim were the progenitors of us. I don't know. Why do people like the Nephilim so much these days? I wonder what that is about. The people are so interested in the Nephilim. I've always found that this fascinating about this fascination with the Nephilim to be interesting to me. I've never really understood it, but people like them a bunch. I've never I've never really got it. Let's see here. Um, other folks. Damn that. Yeah, welcome to a lot of folks. It seems like it's sometimes for folks first time here. So feel free to throw a question in and um, see what folks think. What are my favorite spells found in historical grimoires? I really like the spell, and I think I talk about it in my episode on the Munich Necromancer's Manual, CLM 849. I think my favorite spell is the one where he summons the castle, right? There's a spell for summoning a whole castle, and it's like an illusory castle. And he summons this whole castle, and he summons a fake army to scare the emperor, and it's this whole drama, and then he like makes them dinner, and it's the most bizarre story in this necromancer's manual where allegedly he tricked the emperor, which must have been the Holy Roman Emperor, into going into this fake castle, which that was just a mire, and then he serves them dinner, and it's just like this hilarious story. Excuse me. I really love that spell. I really love that spell a lot. I like spells that the more personal a spell is, the more I'm drawn to it. There's a lot of spells that I find in the Greek magical papyri that are like clearly like people beefing from like 1600 years ago, and I really appreciate the ones where we get to know their names and who they were and why they're upset. And because I think what's really neat about magic is that magic is almost always a glimpse into people's lives, right? That you see kind of what's going on in their world. And I really appreciate seeing glimpses into people's lives. And what's really neat about the magical text is getting those glimpses. And they tell us what people were really doing, right? If you read Irenaeus or Hippolytus or these kinds of other people from that time period, they're really keen to tell you what you should and shouldn't believe or what you should and shouldn't do. But is that any indicator of what people were really doing? No. Like, who knows if anyone gives a damn about what Irenaeus of Lyon thinks, right? Or who, Pachomius or whatever. Like, who really knows if people cared about what these guys think? The average Christian on the street or Jew on the street or pagan on the street, they're operating according to a whole different set of criteria, doing their own thing. And so these magical spells give us a glimpse into what the average life of these people look like. And I find that to be so much more interesting in a lot of ways than these like rarefied conversations among theologians. Now, I love rarefied theologian conversations. Don't get me wrong, but I love the human element that one gets in these magical spells. I think that's a much. I find that to be a much more interesting glimpse into the lives of common people. So. All right, let's see here. Oh, thank you for the donation. In what text would I find the original concepts of Neshama, Echida, the Ruach Nefesh? How these ideas work their way in the Hermetic Kabbalah. So the idea that the soul contains divisions goes back to Plato, or really the ancient Egyptians. So first thing, the idea that the soul, there are different aspects of the soul, goes back far. What you end up getting in the Hebrew Bible is some different words for the soul, ruach, and nefesh, that you see a lot in the Hebrew Bible. You don't see neshama too much in the Hebrew Bible. But the main place that you're going to see the soul being really systematized is going to be first and foremost in the in the Zohar. That's going to be the first big place that you see the soul being really systematized and the discussions of what every aspect of the soul does. And truth of the matter is, they don't sort that out completely at all. So even as late as the Tanya, which is the main text of some branches of Chassidut, of Chassidus, of Hasidism, even by then, they're still hammering out exactly what's supposed to be going on in with the soul. And so there's even conversations in there about whether non-Jews even have the neshama part. They love to not talk about that part because it's racist and it's embarrassing, but it's there. They should just deal with it. The people are bigoted or whatever. And so these conversations go on and on and on through the history of Judaism. Where it enters into Hermetic Kabbalah is an interesting question. I don't know. The short answer is I don't know. It has. What would be interesting is to go look at Reuchlin, go look at De Arte Kabbalistica, and look at Pico, because and maybe if Dan Trell's here, he would know this probably by heart. He's knee deep, and he's not more than knee deep. He's head deep in Pico. But it'd be interesting to know in the sections in Pico whether Pico deals with divisions of the soul in Hebrew in his sections on Kabbalah there toward the end of the theses. But it could be as early as there that it gets kicked over into Christian land, and eventually from Christian land, it makes its way into Hermetic Kabbalah. But where exactly it enters into Hermetic Kabbalah early on, I don't know, and I don't even know if it's articulated clearly in something like the Arte Kabbalistica by Reuchlin and things like that. So I have to look that up. So I don't know exactly. I hate to give you some answer that I just make up. So if I don't know, I don't know. But yeah, we're definitely worth digging a little more in. So I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for that second question. That's the better answer to that second question. Let me jump up. Do I believe that magic is a real paranormal phenomenon? No, I don't believe that. Or rather, I should say, I just don't have evidence of it. I mean, I don't like phrasing things in whether I believe or don't believe things. I like to talk about whether I have evidence or I've seen evidence of paranormal phenomena. I haven't. I would like to. That'd be fascinating. I'd like to be basically, I mean, being fundamentally wrong about your worldview is about the best thing that can happen to a philosopher, because that means you got a lot of work to do, and at least you're never going to be bored again. So I would like to see that, but I've not currently seen evidence of that. But I could be totally wrong. Totally wrong. Yeah, Jorge, I think you're right about the Nephilim and the conspiracy theory stuff. I think you're right. I think that there's what is this, the Robert Sefer guy and stuff that's on YouTube, that some of the really spurious, bad, wrong stuff. I think a lot of that Nephilim stuff comes from there. What do I think about Dr. Stephen Skinner books? He's a great scholar. I find his scholarship to be really great. He's a super smart, very thoughtful person. He, again, is an example of a person who is a practitioner and a scholar, and who does both, I think, marvelously. So I think his books are generally good. I've used them. I have them. So I think that they're great. So yeah, I think Dr. Skinner is a fantastic scholar. I've seen some episodes of him talking and things, and I really admire him. The work he does is hard work. Those texts are pretty obscure, and working on that stuff is fantastic. So good on him. Good on him. Are there any ancient Arabic texts that parallel the Necronomicon, talk about the great old ones? I don't think so. I mean, I think that the only kind of weird texts like that in the Arabic world would be the Nabatean Agriculture, would be one, and Picatrix, right? In fact, I think Picatrix and Nabatean Agriculture are probably, if there was anything like a, what is it called in Arabic? Al-Azif, I think, in Arabic, the Necronomicon. If there were a text like that, it would have been something like the Nabatean Agriculture, which I don't think Lovecraft knew anything about. I don't think Lovecraft knew anything about that. Yeah. And again, I think he made it up from dreams and stuff he had. So made it up from dreams and stuff he had. Let's see. Let me just jump around here and see some other questions that folks have. Do I know how to get the Hebrew for Nathan of Gaz's works? No, they're hard to get. I've actually handled the original one of the early manuscripts of the what's it called, the Derusha Tanaim, the Discourse on the Dragons, Sea Monsters. I've seen that manuscript. I've handled that manuscript at JTS. And it's online, I think. I think you can see it online. I think it's been digitized, but unless you can read that Sephardi hand, it's going to be hard for you to read. It is published. In fact, in the Hebrew edition of Gershom Sholom's book on Shabbatai Tzvi, it's an appendix. It's not translated in the English version for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's a real pity, because it's a really important text in the history of Kabbalah and in general, and it's an important text just for Shabbatianism in general. But if you can get a copy of the Hebrew edition of Sholom's Shabbatai Tzvi book, it'll be in the appendix in the back. I don't have a copy of it in Hebrew, but it's one of the things I'm going to pick up if I find myself in Israel at some point. The best book on the cult of Mithras that I could recommend. The best book on the cult of Mithras is by what's his name? It's right behind me. The Roman Cult of Mithras by Manfred Klaus. I had to find it on my shelf. I think Manfred Klaus's book, the Roman Religion or Roman Cult of Mithras, is the best book in English about the cult of Mithras. I find it's a really, really great book, and it covers basically everything we know. So that'd be the text I would pick up by Manfred Klaus. And it's not that expensive. It's relatively accessible. Let me scroll down and see other folks. Yeah, I would love to make an episode on Nachmanides, or although it's funny making an episode on him. People really love to talk about him being a Kabbalist, and he is, of course, he was. But the problem is that he hides his Kabbalah very, very tightly. He keeps his cards so close to his chest that it's difficult to really mine out what he has. And so I could do an episode on him, but it'd be like, so what does he think about Kabbalah? Well, we don't know, because every time. He will make an allusion to something in the Kabbalah, and he'll say, Hamavin Yavin, right? If you know, you know. And you're like, okay, or this is according to Al Derech Hamet, right? And you're like, okay, I know that when you say Al Derech Hamet, you're saying it's according to the way of truth, and your flag, you're posting, right? You're signaling that there's a Kabbalistic thing there, but he never explains it. So it can be a bit tortured to tease it out. But yeah, Nachmanides in that way is fascinating, because he is a Kabbalist, but it's hard to tease out his exact Kabbalistic thinking because he places cards so close to his chest. Let me scroll back up. How would you define a practitioner of esotericism? How would I define one? This is where we get into these really icky, difficult conversations about who's in and who's out. One, I just think that whatever esotericism is actually really impossible to define, because I'll give you one example of this. We would now group astrology in with Western esotericism. That would be astrology would be part and parcel for anybody studying Western esotericism. But astrology was never esoteric. You could take astrology courses in universities in the Middle Ages. It was completely exoteric. It was a very common way of understanding the world. And so what's now considered esoteric, right, was at that time considered exoteric. Mysticism, some forms of mysticism, right, were much more public, right? Hildegard of Bingen, she was publicizing her stuff. She was giving public sermons. Is she an esotericist? Kind of. So I think often how we draw these lines often says more about the academic discipline, which is completely made up, right? We make the academic discipline up. And two, it says more about us. It says more about what we're doing in our modern times than it does to say about what they did back then. So again, how exoteric is this stuff? It depends. But as a practitioner, I think that if you're it's so hard to say. If you're, I don't know, if you're a member of the Ecclesiastica Gnostica or something, you're probably doing something that would be rubriced under the group of Western esotericism or esotericism in general. But again, how esoteric is that, right? Like, if you can just kind of walk into an occult bookstore and join a hermetic society, it doesn't seem that esoteric, really. Or if all the rituals and stuff are like in a giant book behind me, one wonders, right, how esoteric is this stuff anymore? And I think I've made the joke, because sometimes I get people on the channel who write me like nasty emails. I've gotten several of these where these esoteric occult groups will like write me emails like denouncing me. They're really mean, by the way. I should publish some of these letters. And they'll like write these like really mean notes about how I'm like a charlatan or a fraud, and I'm like all this stuff, which I don't think I'm those things. I hope I'm not. And I'm like, look, if your esoteric secrets are so exoteric that I can find them, it's not that I'm doing my job badly. It's that you did your job bad. If you're supposed to be super secret magic society or whatever, and all your stuff is like purchasable on Amazon, well, I'm not the one that dropped the ball, bro. Like, you need to like check your esotericism situation. You're running a leaky ship. So I again, what's esoteric and what's not is completely up for debate. Completely up for debate. What do I think about Finkel and his videos on Sumerian translation? Great. Finkel's fantastic. Wonderful beard, by the way. I really love his beard, and he's just a great character. He's such a over the top character, and he's an expert. I mean, he's really an expert in Sumeriology and things like that. And yeah, his episodes on Sumerian demons and Sumerian magic are all excellent. Finkel's a great scholar, great character. I really appreciate him tremendously. So if you're watching that stuff, you're in good hands. That is all good stuff. You guys are having an interesting conversation here about serpents and stuff. Yeah, I do like the fact that the serpent is always like a double-edged creature in a lot of traditions. That it's a pharmacon, right? That it produces both the poison and the cure. And of course, that's one of the words for magic. In fact, in the Septuagint, when they translate "Machashefa lo techaye," don't let a witch live, the word there actually is pharmakus. They translate it as pharmakus, and the word means poisoner, but pharmacon, it literally means both poison and cure. Derrida makes a big deal of this because he's Derrida. But this image of the snake, right? The two snakes of the Caduceus facing each other, that one is the poison and one is the cure. I always find this imagery fascinating, right? And then again, you think back to the Hebrew Bible, where Moses has the bronze snakes made, and this image of the snake is, of course, an incredibly powerful image. Yeah, Valerie, it's for herbal essential oils. Yes, you're right. That's what it's for. That's yeah. I mean, again, and when I say things about like esoteric stuff, like if there were an organization, and I made if there was an organization and they wanted, and I talked to them and they wanted me not to release their secrets, I wouldn't violate anyone's confidence. If I were in conversation with a initiatory society and they were like, look, we'll talk to you about X, Y, and Z, but please don't publish our stuff, I would never do that. I would never violate any group's confidentiality. But I think that when stuff gets published online from 100 years ago, I think at that point it's in the public domain. But again, if I were talking to a group and they were like, yeah, don't publish our stuff, I wouldn't do that. That's not good. But yeah, so try to respect people's religious beliefs and things like that. Try to do my best. What is my opinion on Bataille's essay on Gnosticism and materialism? I need to reread it. I have it. It's right there. So, Baba, you're a Bataille aficionado. I need to go reread that article, and I'll end up making an episode on esoteric philosophy, and I'll make an episode on Bataille specifically at some point in the future. I've been wanting to make one on Schopenhauer really recently. I got this Schopenhauer itch, and the only cure is more Schopenhauer. But Schopenhauer has some really cool writings on magic and stuff, and so I need to do more esotericism and philosophy stuff. And Bataille's on that list. Schopenhauer's on that list. Wittgenstein's on that list. I think of Wittgenstein as a kind of mystic. So I need to get to that. I need to get to that stuff, folks. It's just going to take me time. But the short answer is I don't have an opinion because I need to reread the article. I haven't looked at Bataille stuff in probably 10 years. Does anyone know where the origin of the Klippa rulers comes from? Yeah, I made an whole episode about it, Mario. That's the whole episode on the emanations of the left-hand side. That's the first time we really get that kind of imagery. But the Klippot, as you may know them from other stuff, that comes later in Lurianic Kabbalah, and that will be in some of the writings of people like Chaim Vital. Although, let me give you guys a name of a book, especially for folks who are interested in the Klippot. Let me give you guys a name of a book real fast, because I think that you might be interested for my Klippot fans. Um, bu- 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 bu. For folks who are interested in all things Qliphote oriented, the book you're going to want to look at, and I don't know if there's a translation, but it's going to be this one. The Sefer Kanaim. This is the main book about the Qliphote. Like, this is the technical text on the Qliphote that exists in the Hebrew. So if you're interested in if you're interested in that, that's going to be the book you want to look at. It's going to be the book you want to look at. It's going to be that one. But I don't know that there's a translation. Actually, I don't know there's a translation. Let's see here. Scroll back up. Yep, not essential oils. Yeah, Derrida suffers from being Derrida, but now he suffers from being dead. I actually got to pee next to Derrida one time. It's a true story. I was at the AAR. I was at the American Academy of Religion, and I peed next to Derrida. I was there, and I looked over, and there was this tuft of white hair. And I was like, that's some Derrida-looking hair there. And I looked over, and it was him in all his Algerian glory. And I was like, wow, I'm peeing next to Derrida. This is all, my life is downhill from here. And that was not true. It's been actually up. It's been great since then. But yeah, not long before that, Derrida passed away, sadly. But I got to pee next to Derrida, so there's that. How did they get to stories about me peeing? At any rate, whatever. Internet's a weird place. Yeah, I think George. Yeah, if there was any organization that was like gonna hurt people or themselves, and obviously I would do whatever was the ethical thing to do. I would never, protect anyone's confidentiality. Because I think that you always have a duty to report if anyone's going to be injured and hurting people. So I would definitely not. I would not. Would not check. Would not do that. Yeah, Kiruv Media. Yeah, the Schopenhauer stuff. He has a whole section on magic and animal magnetism. It's in the second volume of the world's will representation. That's the one I'll be looking at. It's in some of the essays. So that'll be the episode that I'll be making at some point, is Schopenhauer's view of the will, and then the view of the will on top of that with this whole section on animal magnetism and these kinds of things. Let's see here. Did I look? No. That would be kind. You have to look and not look, right? It's all the deconstruction or whatever stuff. I don't know. I can never make heads or tails of Derrida. I was like one of these people. I was like, is this guy like, he's too clever? I don't know. I don't trust clever people. I don't know. I mean, his books are fun to read, but at the same time, do I like? I'm not. It's not like. It's not that. Yeah, not that. I don't know. I have those books. I'm looking at them. I see my friend Gadamer and Foucault and Deleuze and Guattari and all this stuff. And I'm like, hey guys, not reading your crazy ass books right now. I read other crazy ass books from 300 years ago. So that's what I do these days. Yeah, I totally think that Wittgenstein is a mystic. He straight up says that some of this stuff is mystical in the Tractatus. So yeah, I totally think of Wittgenstein as having a very strong mystical streak to him. That I'm sure that's making him roll in his grave, but he deserves that. He really was a bastard. So whatever. If he's rolling his grave, that's kind of what he gets. That's kind of what he gets. Let's see. Let me see other folks. Let's scroll down here and see what's going on the other side of the chat. What languages do I speak? I have a command of a couple. Like English, obviously, I have some grasp on. But yeah, ancient Hebrew or Hebrew, French and German to some degree. My French and German are not that great anymore, but mostly a lot of ancient languages. So I have a command of some ancient languages. Some of them much better than others. What's the best book to learn Hebrew? Sacred Meow, modern or ancient Hebrew? Those are real different animals. I would say that for ancient Hebrew, I would use Kelly's text, Biblical Hebrew. For modern Hebrew, I'd use the Brandeis Modern Hebrew textbook. those are the best, in my opinion. Kelly's Biblical Hebrew is the best for biblical, and and the other is the Brandeis Modern Hebrew book. It's the best. Opinions on cryptocurrency? Nope. I did buy a bunch of Bitcoin way back at the beginning just to have it, and it turned into a bunch of money. So I did make some money when Bitcoin jumped up that one time. But I mean, there's interesting debates about whether Bitcoin's really currency or not. I'm like, currency is just whatever people believe in. I mean, the word credit just comes from the Latin word credere, to believe. And this idea that somehow it's not really currency, it's not really money. I'm like, if you transfer it to someone and they send you a commodity, you best believe it's currency. So yeah, I find that these debates about, like, the idea that somehow it has to meet some kind of weird criteria. I'm like, no, currency at this point is a metaphysical category, as long as it's, or a psychological one at least. And if people believe in it, it's currency, whether it's dog coin or whatever. So I find those kind of ideas bizarre, kind of bizarre. Um, um, yeah, on your website you mentioned having philosophy reading groups. I used to be able to do that kind of stuff. I would like to be able to do that again. Part of what I would like to do with Esoterica at some point when I can transition Esoterica to like a full-time gig is that I'd like to have a sort of like a Esoterica reading group that has, that's always reading something and discussing it together, whether that's a Patreon community or just folks that want to do it. That's kind of the stuff I want to do as Esoterica becomes, excuse me, as Esoterica becomes more and more of a part of a full-time gig. Part of what I want to do is be able to have reading groups and these kind of study circles, because I really do feel like reading books together and studying with study partners is, in my opinion, the best way of working through some of these texts, and organizing that and stuff. It requires so much time that I just don't have the time right now. Right, like even this summer, I'm just basically going to be trying to catch up. So I think that as Esoterica becomes more of a job, when it becomes sort of my job or a full-time thing, and when I have enough support to make it a full-time thing, then I would love to have things like reading groups, more seminars, classes, a more of a full platform kind of experience where people can really plug into a lot of different learning opportunities. Because I think that Esoterica, and I think that this is true for a lot of people who are doing online content creation, whether it's me or Andrew over at Religion for Breakfast, or Philip or Angela Symposium, that we think of ourselves as kind of entrepreneurs, right? That we're trying to design an educational platform that does many of the things that the university system does, but it does it in a completely democratic way at some level. That is to say, it's crowdfunded, right? It's basically you guys, find people, basically supporting it. And so because you're supporting it, it's much more of an open thing where people don't have to plunge a bunch of money in to get an education. That as long as my needs are met, and as long as I'm able to buy books and support my family and support myself, then I'll do this. I'll do this. I love doing this. This is like this is my passion in life. And so if I can do this in a way that reaches a lot of people, thousands of people on YouTube, why wouldn't I? It's such a great opportunity. And expanding those offerings is just basically contingent on being able to do it, have the time to do it. And that just means basically being able to have the financial support to get it done. That's it. It's as simple as that. But I would certainly be doing it regardless. I just love doing this stuff. It's fat. I love these live streams. I love, I love making episodes. I mean, I was like sick this week, felt really bad, but I was like, yeah, I really want to make an episode because I'm really passionate about this. So I'm like sitting in front of the camera, like off camera, hacking, coughing. But I'm passionate about enough that I'm like, I don't want to take the week off, because it doesn't feel like taking the week off. It feels like not doing what you're passionate about. So, um, um, let me see other folks. you're able to speak Hebrew in the last stream, but do you how do I get conversational Hebrew? I mean, I have some modern and I have a bunch of ancient, and so yeah, it's pretty silly that I'll sometimes if I'm in Israel talking to a cab driver or something, I don't know words, modern words, because I just don't know a lot of modern words or the modern verb form, so I have to kind of crib it from ancient stuff, and so they think that I sound completely ridiculous, which I do. Um, so so yeah, it's kind of a crib together version. Although I am working on getting my modern Hebrew a bit better, put together by watching Shtisel, which is one of my favorite shows. I love Shtisel. I love shows about Haredi people. They're just great. They're just great. Sorry, folks, but let me see other folks. Let me try to look at the time. Yeah, I'll try to stay on for about an hour and 15 minutes, I think, today. Yeah, Jorge, I've had some other people tell me, like, yeah, I'd donate to your channel, but I buy all these books and now I'm broke. I'm like, sorry, man. Going broke buying books, that's about the best way to go broke. But I know your opinion. I know your feeling, man. I absolutely do that. I absolutely know that feeling. So, yeah, Andrew, I've heard that you guys have a really great book club over there at Angela Symposium. That is fantastic. I really, really, really love her. She's such a great person and such a smart, just such a great scholar and a kind person. Angela, man, if you guys are not subscribed to Angela Symposium, you're missing out. And you go over there, subscribe, tell her I said, hey, check out her content. She's just a lovely person and wonderful scholar. Am I Orthodox or even Hasidic? I'm not Hasidic. I'm not Orthodox. I think that I would more identify with the more Litvak schools, more Litvish, more Misnagd. Yeah, but not Orthodox. No, not Orthodox. Not Orthodox. So yeah, man. I can tell you, man, if I had some wealth magic, I'd be on that wealth magic game, but I do not have it. If it exists, I don't have it. Again, it ain't. I do not have it. So sorry for that. What's the scariest book that I've read? I don't know. The Wealth of Nations. It's pretty scary. Wealth of Nations terrifies me. Spooky hands, getting people rich. I don't know. Super scary to me. What other scary books have I read? I read Lovecraft stories. Thomas Ligotti, man. Thomas Ligotti is like super scary. Yeah, I would say Thomas Ligotti is pretty good. It's pretty good for scary stuff. But yeah, what other scary books have I read? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, Clive Barker is pretty scary. I think Ligotti's more scary. He's from Detroit. He's from here, actually. I'd love to meet him. His book, The Conspiracy Against the Human Race, is one of my favorite sort of books. And yeah, Hillary Clinton's also scary. The Clintons. Yeah, I have secretly I'm like I'm a metaphysical pessimist. And so I read a lot of metaphysical pessimism stuff, Schopenhauer and Ligotti and these kinds of people. And so now I have there's a part of me that really believes in that position at some level. So I really like The Conspiracy Against the Human Race, which I really like. It's the same reason I really love the first season of True Detective. I'd love to teach a class on pessimism. I feel like pessimism is one of the yes, Joran is absolutely on that line. That I would love to teach a class on pessimism, because I think pessimism is the one school of philosophy that never got a fair shake ever. No one has ever taken pessimism seriously, and I know why. They just can't. People are terrified, and And I would love to teach a class on pessimism as a mode of being, because I think that stuff is so fascinating. And I would use True Detective season 1 as one of the texts for the class, because I really do think that it's so good. I think it just actually plagiarized some of Ligotti's stuff. But yeah, I'm really, really fascinated about that. But yeah, I like Schopenhauer. Like, I think, I don't know. I'm there's even in the Talmud, there's a part where the rabbis are debating about whether human beings should have been created or not, and the rabbis agree that we should not have been created. This was a mistake. But now that we're here, we have an obligation to be righteous. And I've always loved that part about the Talmud, where the Talmud is like very clear that human beings are a mistake, but now that we're here, we have to be righteous. So, do that. Do I accept donations in cryptocurrency? I might. I have a wallet somewhere, a purse. What is it? I have it. So maybe I should put that out there so that folks can have access to it. I don't even know what my cryptocurrency thing is. What my thing is. I should look that up. Rudolf Steiner. Yeah, I will cover some Rudolf Steiner at some point as well. Yeah. Again, so more recent stuff as I got to get to it. Yeah, I need to get the cryptocurrency. I think I need to look at whatever my wallet or whatever. I should just check and see what my portfolio looks like. There might be some money there. I don't know. Let me see other folks' thoughts or questions. Make sure I'm not skipping a bunch of questions that folks have. Yeah, I definitely want to make some more occult film reviews. I think I'm going to do one pretty soon on The Vigil. I was on a panel recently about this film, The Vigil, which is really good, by the way. If you want a really great Jewish horror film, I don't know, maybe that's something you'd be interested in. That has some nice Talmudic demonology in it. A little creative with the Talmudic demonology, but hey, we got to all be creative. The Vigil is a pretty good movie. And so I'll be doing a film review of how it links up to classical Jewish demonology with the Mazakim or the Mazakim, if you're not speaking Mishnaic Hebrew. So I'll do that one. I need to do one on Hereditary. Everyone always says I need to do one on Hereditary. So I'll do one on Hereditary at some point as well. But yeah, I definitely want to do more film reviews. Again, I'm really appreciate the fact that you guys indulge me doing these film reviews, considering I don't know a damn thing about film, but I'm glad that you guys indulge it. But I am an antinatalist, Constantine. I actually am an antinatalist. I'm just not a very ethically rigorous person. So I have kids, but I think that it's still morally wrong to have them. So I am actually an antinatalist. I'm just a hypocrite, like most people. Or I have a really powerful wife. That's true too. Yeah, Castlevania. Just wearing my hoodie with all my metal patches on it. I have a hoodie with a bunch of metal patches on it, and I have my Castlevania pin that glows in the dark, which I think is badass. And so I have my Castlevania pin, and I always get compliments. Castlevania 3 was the first game I ever beat on my Nintendo growing up, and I remember beating Castlevania 3, which was damn hard. And I remember thinking, as my 12-year-old self, that I was like the best thing ever. I even stood up and did the Superman pose. I was like so proud of myself. If I could only capture like 1% of that energy of beat Castlevania 3 on the original Nintendo at 12 years old, that is some that's some hard energy. I'd love to capture some of that stuff and bottle it and drink it all day. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Tatha Mamun. Yeah, I certainly don't want to have. I don't want to have wealth. I think basically all I would want to have is just like the idea that I could like buy myself books and not have to check my bank account to see if I'm going to like go bankrupt. So like that's kind of what I would want to do. But what are some of the biggest historical inaccuracies or illusory truths in the Kabbalion? None. I mean, I don't think the Kabbalion's not a Hermetic document. It's not related to the classical Hermetica. It's not a Hermetic in that sense. But if people find it to be spiritually rewarding or intellectually rewarding, who am I to yuck their yum? Like if someone asks me, is the Kabbalion hermetic, or does it really capture ideas from ancient times or even medieval times? I'm like, no, it doesn't. It just doesn't. There's nothing in the Kabbalion that sounds anything like ancient hermetic ideas. Now, does that mean that it's wrong or bad? No, it just means that it's sort of badly labeled or something, or mislabeled. The people that wrote it mislabeled it, or intentionally did that. I don't know. But if someone finds it spiritually rewarding, who is it for me to belittle that for them? I don't know. I think there's a fine line to walk between saying this document isn't what it says it is, and that's okay. It could still be rewarding to people. So yeah, I'm going to eventually do an episode on the Kabbalion. But yeah, I find people should read it. I think people should read it, and if it's interesting to people and people find it to be rewarding, then that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely good. So it's what I do find unfortunate about the Kabbalion is that people often find it first, and they think they're reading Hermetic literature, and they're not. And then they go back to Hermetic literature, and they're disappointed or something, right? And I find that is unfortunate, because I think it poisons the well for the historical literature, which I think is really, really, really important. But I don't have any I think some people really like to crap on the Kabbalion, but it's like New Thought from the early 20th century, right? It's fine. If people find it to be rewarding, great. Yes, all of that. Visualize the student debt will go away. Man, wouldn't that be nice? How do you make an a priori ethical value to your life as a whole? How do you do that? I guess you do it like Kant, right? You would just straight up do the categorical imperative. I think you would just do Kantian ethics. I think that's the way to do it. Ray Brazier and Meslieu, yeah, absolutely. I'll have their books. In fact, I would say that Quinn Meslieu's book, his book on finitude, is probably one of the most important philosophical books written in the past several years. I think it's like reading a real philosopher. I think his book is incredibly important. So I would say that if folks have never read it, if you're interested in philosophy, I think it's a really, really important book in the history of philosophy. So I think he's a fantastic philosopher. Yeah, it's called After Finitude. I can put a link up. I can put it in the chat so folks can read it if they want. And I'll put an Amazon link, but you cannot go buy it from Amazon if you don't want. You can buy it from whoever, find it wherever you like. But I think that this book After Finitude is. I think it's a great book. Yeah, I don't think he's a terribly great writer, but I think the argument still is a good argument. But I think he's pretty great. I think it's a pretty interesting philosophy. Let's see. Check the time. Yeah, good. All right. Have you read the anthropological works? Yep. Fraser, Malosky, Graeber. Yep. I've read them. They're classics. I think they're way out of date now. I think that if you really want to study magic from an anthropological point of view, I think the best text for looking at where things are now in the conversation about magic, there's a book called Defining Magic, which I think I have it. It's back there. It's a huge volume that's just a bunch of essays on trying to define magic, as you might imagine from the title. It's really good. I would really look at that if you're interested in the academic conversation, where the academic conversation is now on defining magic. I think it's frankly a hopeless task. And this will betray the structuralist in me. Well, my own philosophical commitments as a structuralist. I just don't think you can define magic a priori. I don't think it's possible. I think it's structurally impossible. But that also reveals how old-fashioned I am. I'm like an old-school Levi-Strauss 1950s structuralist. So yeah, if you've ever wondered about my own personal philosophy, I am not a postmodernist, and I'm not a post-structuralist. I'm just a structuralist. I remember reading all that post-structuralism in graduate school and being like, they're so against structuralism. Let me go read the structuralists. And I'm like, oh yeah, these guys are right. These guys are right all along. So I am And you can probably see it if I tell you that I'm a structuralist, and you go back and look at my episodes, you'll see it. You'll definitely see it, I think. If I have a bias, if I have a bias, but I'm definitely all about the structuralism life. Have I ever dwelled on African magic? Aside from Egyptian magic, no, I don't know much about modern traditional African magic, sub-Saharan African magic, or even magic in the Arab world. I don't know much about it. It's not a field that I know much about. It's very important, obviously. And again, it's one of these huge fields that needs people doing active work in. I just don't know enough about it to say. Oh man, that's the greatest compliment ever, Jimmy. Thank you. I'm also a dungeon master. I think I've said this before, right? That the books supporting my laptop right now are just my 5th edition books, and I'm all I really am happy. One of my favorite compliments to get on the channel is people writing me telling me how much I'm helping them in Dungeons and Dragons. So if I can make people's Dungeons and Dragons life better, I will consider myself to have done something great in the world. Yeah, and it's the demonic tutor without the pentagram. I wanted to find the old school one with the pentagram, but I couldn't find it, and I just threw that one in there. So, oh, David Alonso, hey man, thank you so much for the donation and for supporting the channel. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I wish they'd get Planescape 5th edition on the way. Dragonlance. Who cares about Dragonlance? They need to do Dark Sun or they need to do Planescape. That's all I'm saying. So whatever. I'm not gonna get on my soapbox about it, but Dragonlance. Like yeah, thank you, Jorge. Thank you, man. And I'll thank you also for your like great comments and your great comments and your great thoughts. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Planescape Tournament was a great game too. Also, yep. Let me scroll and make sure I'm not missing any questions. But yeah, I'm great about. I really appreciate. Are you, as a practicing Jew, do you condemn polytheism? No, I don't condemn. I don't really. I mean, I'm not really the condemning type. Sorry, like. I mean, if people want to worship lots of gods, that's their business. It's not mine. I'm not going to get in their business. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. But I'm not going to eat bacon. But if someone's in front of me eating bacon, they say it tastes great. I'm like, good for you. I'm jealous. So yeah, not much of the condemning type. I mean, aside from like people being bigots, like I'll condemn that, or people being bad, or people being unkind. But if you want to worship a lot of different gods, have fun. Pick cool gods. Don't pick boring gods. Pick cool gods. It must be nice to be able to pick a bunch of cool gods. Come on, condemn something. I mean, I don't know, like what I'll condemn how being boring is a condemnatory worthy thing. I don't like boring stuff. If you're going to be evil, be interesting. It's evil, boring people that really make the world terrible. Yeah, the high. Yeah, I'll DM your. I'll guest DM your games. Yeah, I gotta really. Looking forward to condemn cannibalism. I don't know. I mean, I think killing people to eat them is probably a bad idea, but I think if it all depends on the situation. I mean, there's funerary cannibalism is a big part of many traditional practices. So, who am I? Who am I? Again, it all depends on why they're doing it. Those cats that they're in those mountains in the Andes ate those dead people. That's good for them. Brian Nelson, DDK. What currency is that? But thank you. You mentioned earlier where people can look to see what work we can do. Translation. Let me see what you're. Let's see. You meant earlier where people can look to see what work we can do. I'm not quite sure what you mean. Maybe catch it out a little bit for me and see. I'm not quite sure what you mean. Oh, it's in Danish crowns. Ah, okay, kroners. Um, um, the demiurge. Yeah, I can deem the demiurge. Anyone who created this big mess. I want to be the Karen of the universe. Like talk to the manager. Yeah, like I'd like to talk to the manager of all this because this is like a complete like dumpster fire. I'd like to speak to the manager of the universe. I think Job tried that once. It didn't go well. I think Job tried that once and it did not go well. So um, let's see here. Do you recognize that the biblical God stems from a Yahweh's cult? Yes, I do recognize that. Is that bad? Like God, Yahweh seems to be just as bad as any other God. They're all, I mean, so far as I can tell, all the gods seem to be basically jerks. They're just like sky stepdads. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. It's like I'm not really convinced that any of the gods I've ever read about are really worthy of much worship, frankly. I'm not very impressed with most of the gods I've read about. They all seem to be basically just Iron Age dudes in the sky. Um, I'm not very impressed with them. That's me, though. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's definitely people carrying in God in Judaism. There's a whole thing called Din Torah. Din Torah is where you put God on trial for mucking up, and you can convict God for crimes because it's a covenant. So God has to upstand, has to keep up God's side of the bargain, and if God drops the ball, and you can put God on trial. And there are these things called Din Torah where you can put God on trial. So I'm all about that. Putting God on trial. It makes our life a pain. I might as well put that dude to me. I'll put him on trial. Yeah. Iron Age dudes in the sky. Actually, yeah. Iron Age dudes in the sky would be it'd really be an awesome hair metal band. I don't have enough hair to be in a hair metal band, but it'd be so cool to be in a hair metal band, like a real one from the 80s. That would be great. But yeah, Iron Age dudes in the sky. Definitely a hair metal band. Um, let's see. Look at the time. Yeah, we're coming. Condemn Karens. Yeah. Hey man, I used to work at Barnes and Noble, bro. Like I worked at Barnes and Noble when I was a teenager, and let me tell you about some Karens. That was back before they were known by that name. But boy, did we have to deal with some Karens. That was the working at Barnes and Noble is, oh boy, that's rough stuff. That's rough stuff. Fringe benefits, but rough stuff. Um, yeah, what is that old joke from Picnic Face? When life gives you lemons, you find a new god. All right. Just making sure. Do a suggested reading list. Professor Murdoch, a suggested reading list for what? Yes, I do. I have lots of suggested reading lists, but for what I would need to know. Let me scroll back down. It's a question for a rabbi. The best part of working at a bookstore. What's the best part of working at a bookstore? I mean, you get to like meet weird people. Like bookstores attract weird people, so that's fun. Means I mean, also attracts really cool people. So I tend those tends to be a great new thing. So yeah, I used to like working there. I really like working at Barnes Noble. We had a great manager and stuff. It was fine. I think I think that in general, I think I told my wife this once, that everyone should have to work retail for 1 year of their life. If you can work retail for 1 year of your life, you have a completely different vision of the world. And I'm all about like the idea that everyone should have to work 1 year of retail, and once you've done that, you will have an appreciation for all kinds of things um, that you wouldn't otherwise have. Um, let's see. What's your favorite flavor of Fago? Oh man, what if I told you I've never even tried Fago? I look at the colors of that stuff and think that it must just be like liquid cancer. So I've never even tried it. So I need to try it at some point. Maybe I can go to one of the Juggalo festivals and just like have it sprayed on me constantly. I have a great admiration for the Juggalos. Those people really, I really have um, I really appreciate them. Every time I see like a Vice documentary about Juggalos, I'm all about watching it. I just find them to be endlessly fascinating. Do I like gefilte fish? Yes. I'm Ashkenazi. If I did not like to eat gefilte fish, then I would I'd be kicked out. The Fago stuff looks really scary. But yeah, I really appreciate those stuff. If I accidentally ate pork out of, I wouldn't care. I'd be like, whatever. I didn't try to do it. If I accidentally did it, uh, um, if I accidentally did it, I would not do it. Um, Philosophical value, in my opinion, I think Mao's an interesting philosopher. I think his book on contradiction is a great text in general. I think his work on guerrilla warfare is, I mean, it's so important that the U.S. Army still reads it. So he's he's interesting. He's an interesting philosopher. I think especially as his philosophy is taken up in people like Alain Badiou, who I have some sympathy for Badiou. I like Badiou at some level. So I think he's a fascinating philosopher. Yeah, that stuff is interesting. The reason why I use like God and God self, because I just don't like giving God's gender. I just like the way that we like talk about God as He all the time. I just like find it to be like not interesting. I think it's just like if God is a thing, then gendering God seems really weird to me. Um, any conception of God I want, it just doesn't seem genderable. So just to typically think of God as kind of a neutral, genderless thing out there. Gender free, since 5000 BCE. So Mao's leadership did result in the death of millions of people. There's no doubt about that. That's absolutely. Yep, the Honograph text, the Guided Plex, is great. It's really, really great. I really recommend it. Sometimes if I just need, like, if I'm trying to brainstorm episodes for ideas for episodes, sometimes I'll just crack that open and flip through it. And like bibliomancy, I'll just flip through it and put my finger in a spot, and wherever it lands, I'm like, all right, we're doing an episode on Gurdjieff. I don't know. Not that I've done one on Gurdjieff, but sometimes I use it kind of like just a random, like, what do I want to do this week? And I flip through it, and then I'm like, all right, alchemy, Turbo Philosophorum. So it's great in that way. It's a great, and the reading list in the back of the Guided Plex is great. It's great. And the Torah, doesn't God refer to God self? Yeah, sure. I don't care what the Torah says. Like, the Torah says all kinds of things. I'm not. I think the Torah is a great place to start, not a great place to end. Not a great place. Not a great. It's a great place to start, not a great place to end. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Alicia. The anthropomorphisms just seem silly. But I don't have a dog in that fight, really. Not so much. The UFO phenomenon. That's a great question, Daniel. There's no denying that whatever is up there, folks. The whatever's up there is something we need to be looking at. I'm skeptical that it's extraterrestrials, just because I think that the way the universe works just doesn't. There's just no way to travel the distances. I just don't think that the technology can exist to travel the distances that are required to do interstellar travel. I don't think that that's possible for physics reasons. But whatever it is, it needs to be investigated. I mean, clearly something's going on. Like, something's going on. So I think that anyone who says that it's not going on is like, well, the government literally is saying that it is. And so we need to be looking at it. And clearly there's some technology there, but it, to me, could just as well be some new technology that we just don't know about, that the government's developing. I don't know, but I don't think it's extraterrestrials. I just don't think the extraterrestrials could get here. I just don't think I think it's not physically possible. At least not with understanding of physics now. And so I'd rather say that given our understanding of physics now, it's not possible for anything to do interstellar travel. But that's saying now. It's completely possible that our understanding is just wrong. So let's see. I'm going to stay on a couple more minutes, folks. Kenneth Unger. Yeah, Kenneth Unger has some great films. I'd love to do some episodes on Kenneth Unger's films. Also, that Holy Mountain, the Jodorowsky stuff. I'd love to do some episodes on some of his stuff as well. Just get some out. We're getting time to do it, folks. It's getting time to do it. But yeah, absolutely think that Jodorowsky and Kenneth Unger are both excellent filmmakers. So, let's see. Oh yeah, our physics is definitely incomplete. There's no one denies that. We have no, we haven't. There's all kinds of still. I mean, there's Sabine Hassendorfer or whatever. Like, yeah, there's problems in physics. There's no doubt about that. That I think that it's just that, but the holes that exist in physics as they have now, solving those holes doesn't give us interstellar travel. It just that doesn't seem to be in the cards yet. But I'm not a physicist, and I could certainly be wrong. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe it's the programmers in the universe just messing with us. It's just the programmers in the universe just messing with us. So maybe it's that. I'd much prefer it to be that than anything else. Do I know of any groups, academic group, for example, out of who are working on repeating early magic rituals, see what happens? I know that the people at University of Amsterdam are not doing that. Wouter would definitely not be. I mean, aside if they're doing it in their own private time, it certainly would not want to be doing. He would not be doing that publicly, and I don't think he would have any truck with it. But no, I don't know anyone who's actively recreating ancient magical experiments to see what they would do. It's an interesting idea. I think I've mentioned that I would love to see the Maklu recreated, but no, I don't know of anyone who's doing that kind of stuff. If I could recreate any ritual for fun, would it be? It'd be the Maklu. I think the Maklu ritual, I think, is a really cool ritual, and it'd be really neat to see what it would look like to see it recreated. Considering we have it, we actually have the text. That would be really, really fascinating. I'd really like to see it recreated. Martinism, I don't know anything about Martinism, very little. And the Elu Cohen, I do know a little bit about that. One of my patrons actually, Stuart, published that text, and I want to get my hands on it because I haven't looked at it yet. So I just don't know enough about it to know much about it. But I'd like, Martinism is super fascinating. All that world is really fascinating, but I don't know much about it, frankly. Need to learn more about it. Let's see. View on. Well, I've made an episode on the Abramelin. The Al-Azif is a made-up book. The Black Pullet is interesting. Yeah, I find these books. Yeah, they're all interesting. Yeah, the Black Pullet's really recent, right? 18th century or something like that. Yeah, I'd like to eventually get to all the. I mean, eventually I'll do an episode on all the classical grimoires, all the way up till and including tomorrow now. Yeah, I'm eventually going to do an episode on Shabbatai Tzvi. Religion for Breakfast just did one on Shabbatai Tzvi. What I think I'd like to do is less of one on Shabbatai Tzvi and do one more on the Derush HaTanim, the book on the dragons. I'd rather do a work looking at an actual Shabbatian text. So that's more of what I'd be interested in doing. I'm more interested in doing one on a Shabbatian text rather than on Shabbatai Tzvi himself. But if you, like I said, Religion for Breakfast just did a great episode on Shabbatai Tzvi. That's, I think, great. So if you want to check that one out, it just came out a couple days ago. Who's someone in the public eye that I disagree with but still massively respect? Who's someone that I disagree with and respect? I don't know. I'm trying to think of someone. No one jumps to mind immediately, but there's lots of. I mean, I basically disagree with most people. Don't completely agree with anybody, but I'm trying to think. No one's jumping immediately to mind. Who's someone like that? I mean, Elon Musk, maybe. I think a lot of his stuff. I really respect a lot of his technology stuff, but yeah, other things. So, all right. I did know that I did know that about the Supreme Court justice. Yep, he came from a Frankist family. There's no evidence that he was actively practicing as a Frankist. There's no evidence that anyone's been practicing as a Frankist. but he did come from a Frankish family. It is true. Yeah. Did I avoid talking about Gaza and Israel? No. I talked about it. I just don't. I'm just not a political scientist or whatever. So it's one of those things where, not being a political scientist, yeah, like, far be it for me to venture into a conversation about something that's not related to the channel, and I'm not a political scientist. I think it's good to stay in your lane, at least for me. Look at a couple more questions and we'll wrap up here, maybe in about 5 minutes. Let's stay on about 5 more minutes, I think, folks. I'm going to go on a walk. Yeah, Derek, Alexander. Yeah, Dark Song is a great film. I really, really appreciated that film a lot. I think it's great. I really, really have a lot. So I think it's one of the first episodes I ever did was a review of that one. So I really, really appreciate that film. There's a Martinus YouTube channel. That's cool. That's cool. All right. Also, the thing about aliens is, like, aliens coming here. Why? If they have technology that sophisticated, why would they give a damn about us? Like, when's the last time that you were driving on the highway and you stopped on the highway to go look at the ants? You don't care about the ants. No one stops on the highway to go look at the insects on the highway, right? No one does that. Any life forms that are capable of interstellar travel would, like, they would have no interest in stopping and looking at this paltry excuse for what we're doing down here. Like, we dislike each other because we have slightly different skin tones. Like, any civilization that advanced must think that we are the paragon of stupidity. For the same reason that you don't stop to look at the ants on the highway, they wouldn't stop to look at us. In my opinion. So that's, again, more of the stuff I think about aliens. I'm like, the Anunnaki is not coming here to, like, help Sumerian people. If there were creatures like that, they'd be like, yeah, we're gonna stop at that other civilization that has, like, Dyson spheres or something. So could be. Yeah, xenobiology seems perfectly reasonable to me. Seems just as possible as anything else. Just as possible as anything else. Yeah, the danger of groups like Heaven's Gate. Yeah, I just feel so bad for those people and their families. I mean, yeah, so I feel so bad for those people and their families. They're just, like, their families especially. I mean, they made decisions. They're adults. They made decisions, and that stuff seems so sad. But yeah, one of the episodes I'm going to make eventually too is I really want to do an episode on David Koresh's final book, his book on the Seven Seals, which I'd really like to look at, because I think it's an important esoteric Christian text, and I think it's one of these decisive texts in the history of American religiosity. And so, yeah, I think one of the texts I'd like to look at is David Koresh's, basically his final text. So I think that would be really fascinating as a sort of text, because no one ever reads it. I don't think anyone ever talks about the fact that in the inferno of that situation, that they were able to get out this text that he wrote that was part of the negotiations that were going on with the Branch Davidians. So that'll be a text I want to take a look at some point in the future as well, because I just find that to be endlessly fascinating. He's just a fascinating character. All right, folks. Well, I think I'm going to sign off. I'm going to go outside. And I'm going to go on a walk. I'm going to walk with my kiddos and my dog and my partner before Shabbat. And so I can, before Shabbat. And then I'm going to enjoy Shabbat dinner. So at any rate, folks, there's... at any rate, I just want to say again, and I know I say this all the time, but I really want to say it and just let you guys know, I just really love and appreciate you guys, your support for this channel, your support for this project. I really had no idea when I started this that it would ever work, that it would ever get any traction, that anyone would ever take it seriously. I'm just really thankful for everyone who takes the time to comment, to share the content, to support the channel by Patreon or with donations through PayPal or through here, or just folks that just that just like it, the comments, and hit the like button or the subscribe button or hit the notification bell, whatever. That you guys support the channel in so many ways, and I'm really deeply appreciative of that. And I mean that. I really do mean that. So again, thank all of you. Thank all of you for supporting the channel, for supporting my work. For giving me the great opportunity to do this cool stuff, to work on this cool esoteric stuff. So I really deeply appreciate that, and wish all of y'all great evening. Have a great couple of weeks. I'll come back in a couple of weeks and do another live stream. So folks out there who observe the Sabbath, I wish you a Sabbath of peace. And if you observe your rest in another way, I wish all of you lots of rest, lots of good reading, introspection, all the things that are great. So I appreciate all of you so much, and Shabbat Shalom, and see everyone in a couple of weeks. And new episode next week. We'll be talking about Valentinian Gnosticism. So look for that, Valentinian Gnosticism. We're doing some Gnosticism next week. So thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. You guys take care, and go easy on yourselves and go easy on other people. Love y'all. Take care.